Good evening, I'm Camelia and this is KiniNews. Muhyiddin has responded to the government's announcement on the 3-cent egg price reduction. This is what he had to say about the move. Former Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin has given a tongue-in-cheek reply to the government's move to reduce egg prices by 3 cents. In a post on Facebook, Muhyiddin thanked the Prime Minister for reducing the price of eggs. He said this is part of the government's move to return savings from the recent diesel subsidy rationalisation. However, Muhyiddin said the blanket subsidy removal for diesel resulted in price hikes across many goods and services, including school bus fare. He said this is why he had thought that the Prime Minister would be announcing a comprehensive mechanism to reduce prices of goods. Muhyiddin added that perhaps the government should have announced a comprehensive package worth 4 billion ringgit to help the people, which is equivalent to the savings anticipated from the targeted subsidy measure. However, he said what was announced was the reduction in egg prices, which will only cost the government about 100 million ringgit, which was not what he expected. Yesterday, the government announced a reduction in the retail prices of grade A, B, and C eggs by 3 cents, each across the country in line with efforts to pass on the savings from targeted subsidies to the people. The government had decided to do away with the blanket subsidy of diesel prices on June 9th, prompting backlash from several quarters. While we're on the topic of the diesel subsidy, Anwar had said that he would also pursue other means of repurposing the savings that could help ease the public's burden. He also said that price hikes by Singapore tour agencies vindicated the move. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim said the increase in fares by Singapore travel agencies and tour buses proves that the diesel subsidy rationalisation initiative should be continued. He said this is along with the busting of diesel smuggling syndicates at the border. Anwar said targeted diesel subsidies are critical to saving the country financially by stemming fund leakages caused by unscrupulous parties. He stressed that a lot of the funds were leaking and all tour buses and travel companies from Singapore want to raise prices because they say they can't get diesel subsidies, which means that for decades, the subsidies went to Singapore companies and to Thai fishing boats. He said subsidies were benefiting 3.8 million foreigners, such as being taken out to Thailand and sent to Thai fishing boats, and Malaysian taxpayers are paying, but foreigners are reaping the benefits. Anwar also admitted that there are several issues following the diesel subsidy rationalisation but promised to rectify these weaknesses. He said he is open to receiving any suggestions regarding the implementation of targeted diesel subsidies. He added that the previous government and leaders also agreed with diesel subsidy rationalisation because it is the right step to prevent subsidy wastage and return savings to the people. If you'd like access to news like this and more, subscribe now to Malaysia Kini and support independent media. A PKR MP believes that there is historical basis to claims made by Johor Regent Tunku Ismail Sultan Ibrahim. Pasir Gudang MP Hassan Abdul Karim has expressed sympathy towards the Johor region Tunku Ismail Sultan Ibrahim's views on Johor's status as an equal partner to the Malaysian Federation. This came amid criticism that the region's views are unconstitutional. In a statement, Hassan said His Highness's opinions should be taken from a broader historical perspective and be constrained by interpretations of the federal constitution. He claimed Johor was never directly occupied by the Portuguese, Dutch, British or Japanese, thus having the longest history in Malaysia of being a sovereign territory. He said this makes a second-class position in the Malaysian Federation unacceptable to Johor. Elaborating, Hassan said modern Johor is a continuation of the old Johor that was established following the fall of the Malacca Sultanate in 1511. He said Johor basically accepted the patronage of the British but remained an independent territory, and its ruler has sovereignty that is recognized by the British colonial government and its judicial system. He pointed out that they were not part of the Straits settlements under the British and were not forced to accept British advisors to become the Federated Malay States. He added that it voluntarily became a part of the unfederated Malay States together with Kelantan, Terengganu and Kedah. Hassan said that this means that demands for Johor to be treated as an equal partner like Sabah and Sarawak is not nonsense. Back to Anwar, the Prime Minister said the government will study the implications of placing the MACC under Parliament. He said it needs to be discussed as they need to examine the stringent conditions. The government will examine the implications of a proposal to place the MACC under Parliament's purview. This is according to Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Anwar said the strict conditions regarding the proposal must also be reviewed before any decision is made. He also noted that the MACC now appears to be more aggressive compared to the past. He said although MACC is still under the Prime Minister's department, it is the responsibility of the agency to conduct investigations if there is misconduct, regardless of an individual's status. Meanwhile, he said right now, it is important to investigate, have clear evidence and prosecute. Anwar said they should use technical arguments and not avoid the truth. They should not fabricate or oppress. If there is evidence, respond. If there are facts, respond. That is what matters. Last Sunday, MACC Chief Commissioner Azam Baki, when appearing as a guest on a podcast with a news publication, disagreed with the proposal to place the MACC under Parliament. He said the MACC is the only agency monitored by 5 independent bodies, while Hong Kong's Independent Commission Against Corruption is monitored by 4 oversight bodies. The appeals court has green-lighted the Sabah Law Society's challenge over the issue on Sabah's 40% revenue. The court dismissed the government's appeal to quash the judicial review. The Sabah Law Society, SLS, will be able to proceed with a full court hearing of its challenge regarding the state's 40% grant revenue. A 3-person Court of Appeal bench today unanimously dismissed the federal government's appeal to quash the judicial review leave granted by a lower court to SLS. Court of Appeal Judge Ravindran N. Paramaguru then directed the High Court to fix a date for full hearing of the judicial review application. Ravindran ruled that the state entitlement revenue issue needs to be ventilated in a full court hearing as it is a matter of public interest. The appeal judge disagreed with arguments put forward by the federal government's representatives from the Attorney General's chambers that SLS is a busybody without legal standing to file the judicial review. On November 11, 2022, the Kota Kinabalu High Court granted leave to SLS to commence the judicial review. This was over the federal government's alleged failure to return 40% of annual revenue derived from Sabah to the state government for the lost years between 1974 and 2022. SLS had filed the judicial review leave application in 2022 to nullify the federal government's gazette of a 125.6 million ringgit annual grant for Sabah. They claimed it violated the state's revenue rights under the Malaysia Agreement 1963. Azam Baki has stated that low wages and poverty are not main cause of corruption. He emphasized that corruption happens because of greed, opportunity, and issues with governance. MACC Chief Commissioner Azam Baki said poverty and low wages are not the top factors contributing to corruption. In an interview with NST, he said corruption is because of greed and opportunity. Azam said investigations mostly involved enforcement agencies and politicians. He questioned if politicians, ministers, ministry secretaries general, and deputy secretaries general are poor. He added that in the private sector, it would be bankers and questioned if they were poor as well. Azam stressed that corruption happens because of greed, opportunity, and issues with governance. He recommended that the government continuously refine its processes and adopt best practices. He said if people think that corruption happens because of low salaries, his recommendation to the government is to be careful about that. He added that the government shouldn't be increasing salaries for nothing, thinking that will reduce corruption. That is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to Kinitv.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'm Camelia. Thanks for watching.